The age-old question, is 9mm or 45 caliber better for your self-defense handgun? So this is the formula that you're going to use to determine what the value is in any caliber of a bullet based off something called its knockdown value, or KDV. However, before we even get into all that fancy gun people terminology, what we're really most concerned with is the energetic value, or the kinetic energy value associated with said bullet. Whether that's 9mm, 223, 5.56, 40 cal, 40, it doesn't matter, because all you need to do to figure out what's going to work best for you is know two critical pieces of information and the kinetic energy formula. So let's take a look at the screen up here so you can see what I got going on for you all here today. We're going to be concerned with two main components in this formula, which I'll show you here in a moment. One is mass and the other is velocity. Because when you take half of the mass and you times that by the velocity squared, or the speed that something is moving, well, you get its kinetic energy. Energy, and then that little K stands for kinetic. So the first thing that we want to talk about is the mass. The mass is the grain of the bullet. So when you hear things like 115 grain, or 137 grain, whatever it is, the grain, people think that the grain has to do with the actual charge, like the propellant, the gunpowder, but the grain doesn't have to do with the propellant. They're talking about the actual mass, or like the weight of the bullet. So how much mass is associated with these different types of bullets, because depending upon the material it's made out of, sometimes you can get a 9mm that has more mass than a 45 caliber. It's not very common, but it is very possible. So the first question we need to ask ourselves is, what grain, or what mass of the bullet that we're trying to measure against the 45 is it that we're trying to use? So again, we're doing 9mm versus 45 here in this episode. The next thing that you need to be concerned with is, what is the speed? What's the velocity? And we're going to measure that in feet per second. So how many feet per second does this projectile travel? And you can do this a couple of different ways. You can get a speed gun, where it's like I forget what they call it. It's like a calibration monitor machine thing, where it gives you the velocity of the bullet as it leaves the barrel. It's like this digital thing you hook up on the end of your gun. I forget what it's called. You can look it up. And that will give you the speed, the velocity as it's leaving the barrel. You could also set them up across the range, or even right before it makes impact with said target, because of course the longer a bullet travels in distance, then the less speed it's going to have, the less velocity it's going to have, so therefore the less kinetic energy it's going to have. However, when it comes to handguns, especially in self-defense cases, most of them start like less than 5 feet from each other, and you're really not losing that much feet per second from the muzzle to 10, 15 feet away. So I'm not really too concerned about the distance. Otherwise, you'll have to take the distance into account when we talk about velocity. But today we're just talking about the moment it comes out the muzzle. What's the speed of that bullet, so that we can determine its kinetic energy value. So again, in order to find the kinetic energy value, E with little k means kinetic, we must take half of the mass, so 0.5 times the mass, and then we will times that by the velocity squared. Only the velocity is squared. And so the formula itself is going to look something like this. On the top here, we have 9mm, and then on the bottom we have 45. And here, I'll just put that here again, as we begin to kick off this equation. So here we have 0.5 times the grain. In this case, we're using a 147 grain 9mm round. We are going to times that by the speed. The speed here is 1,000 feet per second. Remember, FPS is what we're measuring this in. 1,000 feet per second squared, so to the exponential. And that, my friends, is going to create a value of 73.5 million joules, because we measure in joules when it comes to kinetic energy. So 73.5 million joules is ultimately going to be what hits somebody when you use a 9mm bullet that has a grain of 147. Sounds like a lot. Let's take a look at the 45 here. Now if we take the 45 and we take 0.05 times 230, we're using a 230 grain 45 caliber bullet. And we times that by 935, which to the exponential, that's the feet per second, FPS. And I highlighted that there as well. Then we get a measurement of 100,535,875 joules. So, looking at these two here, in terms of knockdown power, the amount of kinetic force and energy hitting a human being in a self-defense engagement, with the 9mm at 147 grain, you have 73.5 million joules, and with the 45 caliber at 230 grain, you have over 100 million joules. So that means in terms of knockdown value, the 45 caliber in this case is going to be the winner. If that's our goal, is to have more knockdown value. You could take this formula and you could apply it to any caliber, any velocity, all that stuff. You can mix and match however you want to determine what the greatest caliber of weapon system is going to be for you in terms of knockdown value. Now, of course, we need to take other things into account, like, your handling of it. And by that I mean like the weapon system, how well you can manipulate it. Carrying it with you. Is it something that is feasible in terms of your body type and your body structure? Amount of ammunition. Obviously, you don't want to just get 5 rounds off and hope that you got all bad guys with that. That's not very realistic, not very good thinking. So there's a lot of other factors that come into determining what the best caliber handgun is for you. However, this right here is a pretty damn good place to start when we talk about knockdown value, and we're going over the actual scientific equation for kinetic energy. And the science doesn't lie. So hope that helps you guys make decisions. Hope that kind of gives you an idea, a formula that you can go around and mess with and have some fun with, so you can determine what the best caliber is for you, or what you think the best caliber is in terms of knockdown value. And let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you find. Let me know if any lower caliber ammunition has a greater knockdown value than higher caliber ammunition. See you in the next one.